And it looks like we're live. Okay, so we have a quorum. Good morning. Welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. The committee is assembled electronically today for the purposes of public comment on legislation. Before we get started, I want to share some information related to the fact that this meeting is being conducted using electronic format. The meeting is currently being live streamed on our YouTube channel. This means anyone who's a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and heard if your microphone is unmuted. People in the Zoom meeting waiting to testify cannot be seen or heard until they're called upon to speak, and we move you over. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after it has concluded. In a moment, I'll have the committee members introduce themselves. But as always, we keep our mics muted until you're called on. Just we had a couple people off mute there. Perfect. Okay, all our Zoom identifiers are correct. Yes, perfect. So we are, as we pull people over, for anyone in the attendee list, you will go through a couple 10 to 15 seconds of a limbo as you come over. Don't worry, you will still show up on our side. It's just a weird little thing that we go through when you're coming over to provide your testimony. Right now, let's go around and introduce ourselves, starting with Representative Geiger.
Good morning, I'm Representative Valley Geiger. I represent District 93, Rockland and Owl's Head.
Good morning, I'm Representative John Andrews. I represent District 73 in Western Maine, Buckfield, Hebron, and Paris.
Good morning, I'm Senator Scary, and I represent District 18, Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township.
Good morning, I'm Representative Jack Ducharme. I'm representing House District 111, which is Norridgewock, Solon, and Madison.
Good morning, Maine. I'm Representative Sue Austin, hailing from Gray. As I said, very close to the National Weather Service, which still hasn't hit the hot button. And I also have the lovely towns of Raymond, Casco, and all of Frye Island.
Representative Tavis Hassenfuss, House District 81, Winthrop, Reedfield, and part of Monmouth.
Good morning, everyone. Reagan La Rochelle, House District 86, serving part of Augusta.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Bernard. I'm the representative of District 149, which is Caribou, Westmanland, and New Sweden, and I have a problem with the Gray Weather Service, as well as our own weather service here in Caribou, Maine. Thank you very much. We're waiting for the warm up.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Senator Chip Curry, and I serve as the Senate Chair for this committee, and I represent the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County, Senate District 11.
Representative Petworth, did we skip over you?
Oh.
You want to go ahead and introduce yourself? You're on mute.
You just sent a chat. I don't think you can.
Okay, having some feedback. Everybody else here? Not sure what that was. Okay, Representative Tiffany Roberts, representing House District 6, which is the majority of North and South Berwick, and I am your House Chair. Representative Petworth, do we want to try again, or? Nope, she's okay. And then we also have with us today, oh, you keep popping on and off. You're on mute. Okay. We also have with us our committee clerk, Ms. Eva Reed. Eva, if you have any technical issues during the public hearing, feel free to reach out to her. And can we just show the phone number? Eva? There we go. So it's 287-4880 if you have any issues. And we also have with us our OPLA analyst, Miss Rachel Olson, who will be here to guide us through anything as needed. Just a reminder to the committee that the Zoom chat function is for technical assistance only and should not be used for any substantive or bill discussions or anything like that. All questions of people testifying will be made through the chair. We will go on in order of the sponsor first and the other legislators. Eva, could you put that number in the chat, please? Someone just messaged.
The phone number?
Yes, please.
Actually, my phone is not working right now. I just tested calling it and it went straight to voicemail and it's not ringing. So I'm going to contact IT. I'll give you LBHS's number and you can reach me there.
Perfect. So we will do the sponsors, any other legislators, and then we will do speaking for the bill and then against, and neither for nor against. For anyone that's keeping track online, I'm going to go with what we have on our committee page, which is alphabetical, just to kind of make it easier for people to follow. When you're called on, I ask you to state your name, place of residence, and if you represent an organization. We do try to stick with 3-minute time limit. Anyone wants to man the timer? Senator Curry? Okay, so we'll just give you kind of a little heads up when you've hit the 3-minute mark. Let's see, it'd be greatly appreciated if you're done offering testimony to this committee on the bill scheduled state that you exit the Zoom meeting and you can go ahead and watch it on the YouTube channel. Okay, I don't think, did I miss anything? I don't think so. That being said, let's go ahead and open the public hearing for LD 1923, an act to establish the Maine Space Corporation, which is sponsored by Senator Daughtry. And Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to double check that the only thing we have on the agenda today is the public hearing for 1923.
We have the public hearing and then we have report backs action, and then we're going to go over the GEA reports to see if the committee would like to take any action on those as well.
Okay, thanks.
If you could, Representative Petworth, let's try
Good morning,
this.
everybody.
Yes.
Excellent. I'm Sarah Petworth. I represent House District 133 in the Blue Hill Peninsula.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Reed, if we could move over Senator Daughtry, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm not seeing Senator Daughtry, but Senator Hickman is here.
Okay. Let's move Senator Hickman over. Maybe he's presenting for Senator Daughtry. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
I'm great. Good morning.
Are you presenting for Senator Daughtry? Because she's not.
I'm not presenting for Senator Daughtry. I wasn't even intending to present at all, but I do want to say a few words as long as I'm here. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and esteemed members.
Oh, sorry, Senator. I think we need to have the bill introduced first.
Got it.
Senator Curry, can you reach out to Senator Daughtry? We'll leave you in here, Senator Hickman, because you'll go right after her. It's okay. We need to officially open it up first so people know what we're working with.
I'm resending her the link right now.
Okay. Thank you. shoot her a text and see if she's. I guess this is a good time to remind everyone that while this format is not necessarily new to us, we're still going to have our little hiccups here and there.
I just got an email back from her aide. She's having problems with the link. I'm going to send her a new one.
Okay.
Is this Groundhog Day?
It might be.
I think it's been Groundhog Day for the past 2 years, Sue.
Seems like it.
Senator Daughtry has confirmed she's trying to get in, so she's at the door. While we're waiting, I'm just curious, Representative Bernard, do you think you won the snowfall contest?
I'm not 100% sure. We certainly got a lot, and the snowmobilers and skiers are very, very happy. I think we may have won the cold prize, which was something like 27 below overnight. Yeah. Chilly. Global warming. What can I say?
I'm very hopeful it will mean a good season in terms of ticks, that we just eliminated all those southern invaders.
Yeah. Yep.
I see Senator Daughtry in the attendee list now. We can move her over, Eva. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you all. I have no idea what was going on with the Zoom link, but I restarted my laptop. It kept saying incorrect link and incorrect password. So apologies.
No problem. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. As always, I definitely owe all of you a large amount of cookies, candies, and various other assorted treats whenever we're back in person. And as always, it is wonderful to be back in front of the IDEA Committee. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and members of the Innovation Development, Economic Advancement, and Business Committee. I am Senator Maddie Daughtry. I represent District 24, which consists of the towns of Brunswick, Freeport, Harpswell, North Yarmouth, and Pownell. And I'm here today to proudly introduce LD 1923, an act to establish the Maine Spaceport Corporation. This bill would establish a partnership between Maine and a private corporation to move forward with developing a network of launch sites and mission control for Maine to be a leader in the commercial launch of nano satellites. This process would create the Maine Space Data and Advanced Analytics Center of Excellence to build a complex data storage and analysis network to serve as a hub for new businesses and satellite launches. And I do recognize the irony of having trouble with technology while presenting a bill about technology to all of you. This is also not the first time this committee has heard this proposal. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Secretary Bellows introduced this legislation on behalf of her constituent, Terry Shahada. Terry is part of the Maine Space Grant Consortium, an entity that has brought millions of dollars into Maine from NASA for investments in education and our economy. In addition, Terry will speak in much greater detail about the nuances of the Maine Spaceport Corporation and Maine's unique position to be a center of nanosatellites. If you look at our geography, where we are could make us a manufacturing and technology leader and a very important place to leverage our location and other assets in the 21st century space race. Creating a spaceport complex in Maine will also retain and attract engineering students from our universities to live and work right here in Maine. It aligns with our state's strategic plan's goals of helping to train and retain Maine students graduating in aerospace-related STEM, encouraging creativity and startups, and attracts niche skilled workers and their families to live and work in Maine. In addition, it would draw good paying manufacturing jobs into our state in potentially Aroostook and Washington counties, in addition to Cumberland County and many other parts of the state, which would be in close proximity to different aspects of the spaceport. This proposal fits well into our economic strategic plan and will spur development in all 7 technology sectors targeted for Maine by our strategic plan. And I have to add, we're already seeing this in my own Senate district. For those of you who have been out on the Brunswick Landing and have been lucky enough to either meet with, see, or tour Blue Shift right here in my own district, we have a company that's leading the edge on really incredible, low Earth orbit and other aspects. They're using a climate-friendly biofuel. So I'm already seeing right now the fruition of many of these different efforts. The private sector, space travel has accelerated substantially in the last 5 years, and Maine needs to be prepared and open to this changing industry. Nano satellites are smaller, cheaper, and faster to develop than conventional satellites, and are part of the industry referred to as new space, based on the philosophy of developing cheaper satellites faster, essentially democratizing the space market. They're used for Earth observation, such as analyzing the human impact on agriculture, forestry, geology, and the environment as a whole, communications and global connection networks, geolocation and logistics, and handling of assets such as aircraft, ships, vehicles, signal monitoring, and more effective logistical planning in the case of a disaster for more efficient and effective rescue and relief work, and biomedical research, which is a field that's consistently in development. The private sector can't do this without support from public authorities, which is why I'm before you today. It will require coordination between federal, state, regional, local, and private entities. The aerospace companies already in Maine view this as a massive opportunity and are in conversations with venture capitalists to couple a state investment. Those private investors believe Maine is serious about this development and believe that this coordinating council before you is crucial to ensure we aren't slowed down by communication or a bureaucratic problem. Time is of the essence, and Maine needs a spaceport corporation to lead and seize this once in a generation economic opportunity. Additionally, I'm sure there will be others behind me, and you've received some written testimony about this. There are other municipalities and cities and states and who are in similar positions as Maine to be able to take advantage of this, whether it's the combination of educational resources, geography, state investment. And I like to sort of, always put what the stakes are on the table. And one of the other entities that's really looking into being a forerunner in this industry is Halifax. And, as we say, dear ago, Maine likes to lead the way. This bill is really crucial for making sure that, we sort of beat Halifax to the table, not to say that everything is a competition, but sometimes in things like this, it really makes a difference. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability. And thank you for your time and patience this morning.
Thank you, Senator Daughtry. Questions from the committee, Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here today, Senator. You mentioned early on in your testimony that this was a partnership with a private corporation. I'm curious as to who or what that corporation is. And you also mentioned state investment, and I'm curious as to what those numbers look like. Because I didn't see a fiscal note on the bill yet, I don't think. Thank you.
Correct. So the corporation is actually, if you open the bill, this creates the corporation. The language is similar to other sort of those public-private entities that we have in other areas of state law, such as Loring or the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority, where we've taken on properties and created sort of a guiding corporation in this quasi-public quasi-public-private partnership. So the bill in front of you creates just that corporation. And currently,
If it's publicly funded though, how is it a private corporation?
so it has the sort of board on it. It's just how it's set up. I would defer to others who will come behind me who have worked on these type of corporations before, but that's sort of its, existence or sort of public identity. And then as far as the fiscal note, there isn't a sort of the investment drawdown isn't part of the bill quite yet. This is sort of like we're putting on our shoes and tying our laces. It's the foundation for the next steps.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Senator Seaway. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Love this year. So, Madam Chair, Senator Daughtry, appreciate you bringing this forward. To me, this kind of mirrors what happened 50 years ago, the Earth Station. And that was, I guess, worldwide, it was a community of 762 people with a smattering of small businesses that came together. And actually Margaret J. Smith was part of that. And so anyway, so it did mention about they were in Andover, Maine because of, and you mentioned it about geography. And it said that Andover was chosen because of the geography and location, bowl surrounded by mountains, so that there was Andover experience was almost microwave radio interference. Interesting to me that Maine would be the spot for something like that. So I think I'm just curious what kind of location are they looking at for this sort of setup?
So that question, I would defer to those who are going to come behind me. The idea is to have this coordinating council. So no matter what locations they're looking at, it's that sort of cooperative buy-in, not only from the folks who are working in this industry, from the coordinating council, but most importantly, from the folks who are in those regions, making sure that it's all of us together, because that's always one of those concerns of, yes, geographically, we're in this ideal place, but we have to make sure that, for launch sites that we're working with everyone and everyone's bought in and on board. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out, Senator Seaway, that I have Margaret Chase Smith, the bobblehead bird, sitting behind me every day.
There you go.
I am familiar with her prior work on the endeavor that you mentioned.
So this is kind of a mirror effect of how that was set up, kind of, correct?
In a way, in the aspect that I think anything dealing with cutting edge technology, especially space, really needs to be sort of a cooperative effort where you need to have, sort of that public-private partnership from all aspects. You have this coordinating council, this corporation, you have, higher ed, education. I know you received testimony from the University of Maine system as well as the community college system. So you need that portion, the buy-in, and need sort of the private businesses, like one I mentioned, Blue Shift, that's already, up and running and testing. All of those together are really missing the key aspect of, how do you connect it? What's the glue? And that's what that coordinating council is. And that's what will set us ahead and be able to become a leader in this.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Representative Bernard.
Thank you so much, Chair Roberts. I appreciate it. And good morning, Senator Daughtry.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this piece of legislation, which I think is really exciting. As I'm sure you know, Blue Shift did a launch. And they did that about a year ago, and it was up here at Loring Air Force Base. I was there that day, and it was not quite as cold as it is today, but let me say it was not warm either. And we waited and waited just to get the right circumstances underway. But in any event, I want you to know that I'm really interested in all of this. And I would love to see something go forward. I have to, my antenna go up when I think of, the great people at Blue Shift who have been able to be innovative and do their work without this sort of commission, I always have to worry. I'll be perfectly honest and say that when you have an industry that's moving ahead well, or seems to be moving ahead well, and then the government gets involved and we set up a big, heavy commission, I just would hate to see anything like that get in the way of the wonderful movement that there has been at Blue Shift. I want to make sure to support Blue Shift. And I also want to make sure that this commission wouldn't be too influential with the companies that are working, because in other words, to determine where are they going to do their work from, where are they going to launch from, because whenever that happens, it tends to be that there's only one or two places in the state that are considered. And I sure don't want Northern Maine to be left out of all of that, I'll be perfectly honest. So I'm kind of rambling here, but I am worried about sort of an overarching heaviness on top of what can happen when private enterprise goes forward and does such wonderful work. And I will have a follow-up question when you're done.
No worries. And thank you, Representative Bernard, for your question. I'm so jealous you were able to be there for the launch. My partner and I, who have been big fans of Blue Shift since we first, got to meet them out there, we were watching and cheering them on from the brew room. We were making a beer that day. So we had the launch up on, the TV, and we're like waiting and going back and forth. And it was a really proud moment, I think, not only for our communities, but also for the state. Hopefully this makes this really easy for you. And I absolutely agree. We never want to be, the entity of government that just makes, solutions without a problem, or creates bureaucratic red tape, or just another commission or something so that we can all have another check next to our name or another line on our resume. This bill actually comes from those private enterprises that you were mentioning, who have said specifically the lack of this is the barrier for their success. Blue Shift, the founder of that company, was part of the initial conversations, and one of the reasons that I was brought into this second iteration of the bill. And that was one of the things I asked of, how do we make sure this is working for everyone? And across the board, everyone who I've spoken to who has a small business, private business, or is working with much larger contracts, beyond not just NASA, but some of the sort of cutting edge space companies that we're seeing globally, have pointed to specifically needing this council, this corporation, and this type of work. I hearken back to a lot. My mother's family is from Eastern North Carolina. And one of the things I grew up hearing tons about, and I've been able to visit. And when I was chair of this committee, for the folks who are on IDEA there, they probably got sick of me hearing me talk about this, but I always bring up Research Triangle Park as that sort of gold standard of what you need when you're talking about a public-private partnership, and that you have to have those three triangles, and it's, the governmental buy-in, the higher education portion, and then the private business. And with those, parts of the triangle, you really generate that innovation and development that we want to be seeing here.
Thank you. May I follow up?
Yes, just a reminder to committee members, we have quite a few people testifying. We want to make sure that we're kind of sticking to clarifying questions and not going into commentary, work session type things. That would be helpful.
Sorry about that. Senator Daughtry, but I did like that back and forth, just so you know. But anyway, I was just wondering more an overall clarifying question, and that is, for this session of the legislature, isn't it, for my own clarification, supposed to be emergency type bills? And I'm wondering how this is qualifying.
So I'm going to give the quick version, and then everyone behind me is going to jump in probably with much more eloquent versions, but it is an emergency. We've tried to get this bill before. There is literally large amounts of venture capital being held up by the lack of not having something like this. I'll let the businesses and Terry and folks who are working every day and have that literal sort of pressure on them to be able to see this get through. In that initial meeting I was having with all the stakeholders, I asked the same question, other than obviously the emergency of wanting to be at the forefront of this industry and not losing out to Canada, not to pick on our neighbor from the north. And you live with it every day right there in your backyard. It's an emergency and we need to get this ball rolling, and there is potential investment being held up by something like this. So hopefully that answers your question.
Representative Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you help our committee, our present committee, just run through the process? And at what point did we accept this, at the point that it was submitted by Senator Fellows? I mean, I remember the whole presentation and the energy behind it. I just don't remember what was the cog in the wheel. Can you help us with that one?
This is a quick one. It was the COVID-19 pandemic and adjourning when we did in March.
Okay.
So one of those bills that we're back to try to get.
Right. So we had put it all the way through, or we were just short of the vote. That's what I'm trying to get.
Remember, and Terry, I know, and I can look this back up because I had it in my notes, which I unfortunately left on my desk in my office. We had sent it out from committee because Sue, you were part of, I think, the tour when we went down and we were able to see all the facilities, and all worked on as a committee, did a little bit of language finesse, and I think we had released it. I think it was just waiting on funding because it was a unanimous committee report out of IDEA.
Okay, I thought that's where we were at, and thank you for that declaration to that point.
Absolutely.
Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Roberts. I have a question, and Senator Daughtry, it could be for you or anybody following. I'm just curious as to why Maine might have a competitive advantage over other states. I know Halifax and Maine are kind of on the seaboard and, the northern sphere there. I don't know if that has something to do with it. So if someone can just explain why Maine is a location compared to, like Texas or Montana, Florida, or something else, that would be interesting. Thanks.
So there are definitely folks with much better degree numbers coming behind me to explain it. And I feel like I need a whiteboard, but the first quick, hopefully 30-second version of, if this is the Earth and you look, say Maine's here and you're trying to get something into orbit, the energy it takes to get into the sort of new space section that we're talking about for these nano satellites from our geographical position takes much less energy and fuel to be able to get into that rotation. Hopefully for the folks who actually do this for a living behind me will tell me how much I just messed that up. But my mother almost majored in astrophysics, and I've grown up with a very enthusiastic, space-obsessed, sci-fi loving family. So hopefully my back of the napkin explanation makes it a little bit easier. But I have to say, if you get a chance to sit down with any of these scientists and entities, it will blow your mind. It's so exciting. So,
well, no, thank you for explaining in a way that I can actually understand.
Perfect.
Representative Andrews, did you have a follow-up?
I did, yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious. I'm a little confused. I mean, if there's existing private sector capital, what's holding them back from doing this entirely in the private sector? And if there is any red tape that needs to be cleared up, is there anything short of creating a new government entity that we could do to expedite this so that the private sector could function freely? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Andrews. And I think this sort of gets to what I was saying with Representative Bernard, that yes, if this was something that just had a quick clerical fix, I definitely would have come forward with that. And I will definitely defer to those coming behind me to explain the nuances on how this helps them. But I don't see this as a barrier to the free enterprise. In fact, I see it as a partner. And the best types of government are when, we all like to, joke about shutting up and getting out of the way and making, everything possible. And that's kind of what this is. It is setting that foundation, setting those parameters to be a partner rather than a barrier to bring forward this type of innovation and technology. And, for folks who are going to speak behind me, they'll be much better nuanced on, what this looks like in other states and countries. But when you're dealing with something like, for example, air traffic, FAA, like you're going to need that sort of oversight so you don't just have people launching rockets willy-nilly, you know, in whatever district or town. And most importantly, having that sort of coordinating council or entity will make it so that we're not duplicating our efforts and really working together. And going to mention it one last time, can't be in front of IDEA without at least getting out 2 references. Really, I think Research Triangle Park is another amazing example of exactly what I'm saying. So.
Okay, but on a state level, there's nothing holding back the private sector from doing this on their own.
Currently, no, but
Okay.
there's a
Thank
but. You'll hear about what they found, you know, they need to go forward with it. So.
Does the committee have any further questions for Senator Daughtry? Seeing none, thank you, Senator. And I believe we have Senator Hickman in here already with us, if you're still there.
Yes, thank you, I am. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. My name is Craig Hickman. I represent Senate District 14, which are 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County, including my hometown of Winthrop. I'm here today in support of LD 1923, an act to establish the Maine Spaceport Corporation, which I have also signed on to as a co-sponsor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to just say a few brief words. And I won't necessarily be happy if you ask me any questions because I won't have the answer. I just want to say that my family is obsessed with space exploration, and this bill represents an opportunity for Maine to lead in this way. Terry Shahada is a constituent of mine in Winthrop, and he brought his passion and energy about this project to my farm, I think last summer with COVID. I can never remember what year we're in. I do know that Secretary Bellows, who was my former state senator, has worked very long and hard with Terry Shahada and a group of stakeholders to bring this to you. You've already heard, you voted this out a few years ago with a unanimous report. And so I just want to put in a good cheerleading support for getting this bill to the floor of the House and Senate where it can finally have a vote. And the devil, yes, is in the details. I have some of the same concerns that have already been expressed, but I also just have faith that this committee and the legislature will do its due diligence so that if this public-private partnership goes forward, that the people of the state will benefit. And it's always nice to present in front of a committee that has my state representative, Representative Hassenfuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. Are there any questions from the committee for the senator? Seeing, thank you. Okay, I think it makes sense to bring Terry Shahada in next, Ms. Reed. And you can also bring in Jason Daniele. Mr. Shahada, how are you?
Oh, good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great.
The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. What I'll do is I'll answer some of the clarifying questions, and because I think much of the stuff and many of the folks coming after will provide a little bit more detail. But anyway, Senator Curry and Representative Roberts and members of the committee, my name is Terry Shahada. I do live in Winthrop, and I am the executive director of the NASA-funded Space Grant Consortium. We're a nonprofit 501c3 and part of a national network of state-based consortia in 50 states plus District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. And on behalf of my board of directors, I'm testifying in support of LD 1923. I also want to take this opportunity to express my extreme gratitude to Senator Daughtry and the co-sponsors for introducing the bill. Just a quick background on myself. I have lived in Maine since '68, and I graduated from Orna High School and received my education and bachelor's and PhD from the University of Maine. My wife and my 3 sons are graduates of the University of Maine, and I have been involved in economic development and research infrastructure development in Maine for over 35 years, both in the private and the public sectors, and most recently as the USM coordinator for the Maine Economic Improvement Fund until my retirement in in September. Since 2001, we've invested NASA funds about $25 million to strengthen the state's aerospace-related R&D infrastructure, including education that benefits both NASA and Maine. And we've been very comfortable in terms of the impact that these investments have been having on NASA, but we were not very comfortable with the investments in the state. We just didn't see the impact that we would love to have seen, and we were looking for ways to increase Maine's engagement in space development and related spin-offs that would grow Maine's economy, but also make a difference by motivating high school and graduates, college graduates to stay in Maine and capitalize on employment and business opportunities in this new space economy. We have, in looking at opportunities, we've noticed that there's this notion of a new space economy that's resulted from the shift from the exclusive domain of large government to private industry that's made it a little bit more affordable and precipitated a wave of industry innovation and growth in low-cost satellite-driven businesses. And these small satellites they're fast growing. It's in a very dynamic market. It's attracting high level of venture capital and federal attention. And the market is projected to grow from $4 billion in 2020 to at least 25 by 2030 and perhaps more. So we thought to see whether or not Maine could get involved in something like that. So we looked very carefully at the assets that we have. We do have the physical infrastructure assets of Brunswick Landing and Loring Commerce. We have direct and indirect aerospace related research and education and facilities at institutions like UMaine, USM, Rue Institute, and the community college system. We have a pretty good aerospace and manufacturing supply chain that includes Blue Shift, Vault Enterprise. It's now located in Aroostook County, Fibers Material, BIW, Pratt & Whitney, Texas Instruments, and more. We have a pretty good entrepreneurial ecosystem support network. And most importantly, we have a geographic advantage. And I think that was one of the questions that Senator Daugherty really answered eloquently. Maine sits geographically in the contiguous United States, in a nice place where you can launch small satellites, no bigger than the size of a bread loaf, using small launch vehicles about 50 feet high, just like a little bit smaller, maybe larger than in length than Blue Shift and 3 feet in diameter, into polar orbits. That's a demand that the industry on a national and international level is pursuing because of the low cost and the greater coverage it would have in land masses for a lot of applications, as opposed to the large cost of launching large rockets from places like Cape Canaveral and the West Coast and New Mexico and Texas.
Mr. Shahada?
Yes.
Can I have you wrap up in the next 15 seconds or a little over the 3-minute time mark? And then you can answer any questions the committee has.
Okay, why don't I just do that? I think everything is in in my presentation, some of the background information, but the point of clarification, last session, actually Senator Bellows' bill that was submitted, it was to create the coordinating council to develop the strategic plan. That went through the committee unanimously, but because of COVID, it didn't go forward anymore. What we did with encouragement from DECD and the university and the governor's office, we got some funding from EDA and MTI to complete the strategic plan, and we're going to be releasing it February 11th, and we'd love to present it at the committee, hopefully before the work session. But I'll end right here. I think this is an opportunity of a lifetime for Mainers, and I would certainly hope that the committee would pass this, ought to pass to the full legislature and with the signature of the governor.
Thank you. Questions from the committee, Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Shahada, and I'm really interested in, as you explained earlier, how in Maine you can do it much more efficient, much cheaper, do the smaller launches. And without going into the intricacies of space and how that all works. What I understand you saying is that in Maine, we can launch satellites much cheaper than what we could in Florida or California or other places like that. Is that an accurate interpretation?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because when you're launching polar orbits, you're using less energy, less fuel than you do when launching equatorially off Cape Canaveral or even in Georgia or the West Coast. So, and it provides more application, more commercialization opportunities. So polar orbits require smaller rockets. We're talking about real small satellites the size of the bread loaf. And that uses a lot less energy than normally you would need for equatorial orbits.
And that's when you say polar versus equatorial, we're talking places further in the northern hemisphere would be able to do that, whereas the further south you go, it becomes not as like. Is that correct?
You're breaking up. I don't know if it's on my end or yours.
So is what you're saying that geographically the polar orbits need to be more located further to the north, so like Halifax and Maine and other places in Canada would work there? Is that generally speaking how it works? Yeah.
And the only other state that has something has something like that is in Alaska, but it's very difficult to get to. But we would be one of the very few, and this is where the urgency for us to get into the market, very few that locations that can achieve that goal.
Senator Seaway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for coming, Carrie Shahida. I was mentioning about the Bell Telephone Earth Station, and this is 50 years later, but it's very similar from what I understand as far as the involvement of what government and the private business sector is. Is that correct? And also is this what role is the state involvement as far as necessary?
Well, when we did our study that was funded by MTI, it was we've heard and looking at other sites in the country, one of the points of success for any endeavor like this, it has to be a private-public partnership where the state provides its infrastructure for entrepreneurial, like DECD and things of that nature, but the investment primarily comes from the private sector that are going to be involved in this endeavor. One of the key parts of this corporation is its ability to issue bonds, and this is where the role of the state comes in terms of allowing that in the corporation. But that attracts a lot of the venture funds, not only for Blue Shift, but for the other enterprises that would make up this ecosystem that we're talking about in terms of establishing a space complex across the state. That would impact the southern Maine, the western Maine, and certainly along the coast as well as Aroostook County. So the corporation is set up that would have participation by state government, as you saw in the folks on the bill that make up the corporation, but the guts of it come from the private sector. Those are the people that really are going to drive the development of a new space economy in the state and begin attracting other folks from the outside to really participate in this.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a first request of the analysts, could we maybe get a look at what they're doing in Halifax, if that's already existing, just to kind of see if there is an existing model? And then my question for Mr. Shahada, thank you for being here. You mentioned a public-private partnership with public infrastructure and private investment, and I'm confused again. If there's private investment, then why would the public side need the ability to issue bonds if it's privately financed?
Yeah, the biggest stumbling block in developing a complex in the state is really the bricks and mortars, the facilities. But when you're also talking about launch sites, you're also talking about what the infrastructure for those launch sites are. It's a very taxing effort. Not from a well, it's an expensive effort. It requires a lot of work, and this goes beyond what the investors, what a small company like Blue Shift is able to do, and address some of the regulations that are required. So the development of this public corporation will speed up and enhance that effort, and not only for Blue Shift, but also for other launch providers that want to come into Maine and make Maine home. So it's really critical to have that capacity to do that. Without that, it'll make it much more difficult for companies like Blue Shift and others to really put a foothold in the state and expand and create good job opportunities for Mainers.
To follow up on that, do you think there could be any revenue generated for the state after the infrastructure is built and being used by private industry for their programs?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think what the whole goal of this is really to create job opportunities for Mainers and business expansion and startups. But there's a lot of revenue generation, not only for the corporation itself to maintain the operations, but as a result of the business coming in, there will be a lot of tax revenues to come to the state. We did a preliminary economic impact analysis but in 2020, and that's being updated as we speak, that showed that the contribution to the state GDP could be anywhere between $1 billion and $1.5 billion by 2030, and that's on an annual basis. So there's a potential a significant amount of revenue that would come into the state as a result of the business growth. And one clarification: Halifax does not have a port. They're very slow in the development of their spaceport, and that's why Senator Darden, when she mentioned in terms of the urgency of this, is that we're trying to be a step ahead of some of our competitors, not only in Canada, but also in Alaska, for example, because they have a spaceport as well for polar orbit. So we want to do this as quickly as possible so we can enter into the marketplace.
Can you send that report to the committee clerk? I'd love to look at it, because if we can verify that this would be a positive ROI for the taxpayer, that would go a long way.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Representative Andrews, it's going to be in the interim strategic plan that we are going to submit to this committee next week. And that's why we were requesting, if your schedule allows, is to give the committee a briefing, and we can go over the details and show you what the potentials are.
Thank you very much.
Senator Curry.
Thank you. Chair Roberts, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Shahada, for being here today and presenting this important bill, important bill. I'm curious, one of the things that I have learned and have been tracking closely on the Maine measures of growth from put out by the Maine Development Foundation is our where we are on research and development in the state, the amount of money we spend on research and development. And when you dig into those numbers, you see state level funding is actually fairly decent. It's okay, but where we really drop off is around corporate investment in research and development. Do you see this sector moving the needle on that? Do you see this attracting research and development dollars?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because what we're talking about is this, Senator Curry, this is not only about launching satellites and small rockets. This is about creating business opportunities, very similar to what the space program did in the 1960s and now, where it spurred a lot of research and development investment in the private sector, higher education, R&D, and opportunities for commercialization. By passing this bill, it sends a signal to the private sector and the investors that Maine really is serious about this. And that starts the ball rolling. It's a domino effect. By seeing that the state is interested, then we'll be seeing them kind of entering into the fold and becoming participating in the elements of the space complex. Because the complex is a plug and play, very similar like the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority. We provide the facilities, we provide the resource, the non-financial resources, and the private sector comes in and they need to develop technologies. They need to, for our elements of the launch rocket, for our elements of the satellite, but also the data that's collected from the satellite that could be very specific for our industries. They need to develop these applications. That requires research and development funding from them, not from the state. That requires high trained, skilled people that we can provide job opportunities from our graduates as well as recruit folks from the outside. So the simple answer to your question, Senator, absolutely. That's the magnet that will create that investment. Now, is it wishful thinking? I hope not. But I think it's an opportunity we can't waste to really see what can be done as quickly as possible.
Representative Bernard.
Thank you very much, Chair Roberts. Thank you very much, Mr. Shehata, for being here today. And I'm not sure that I can express this question clearly, so give me just a moment. But as this new entity, I'm just curious as to the makeup of it, so that every entity that wants to have a piece of it, I guess I'm just wondering, how does a new venture capital like Blue Shift or others, I mean, Blue Shift is established, but I'm wondering, how does anyone who has this kind of startup or a new company, how do they get a piece of this wonderful R&D? And it's the makeup of the committee or commission, that's put together, that I just want to make sure that it isn't heavily weighted toward one company or another. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that we had very specifically proposed a setup of the board for the corporation that would represent the different facets of the community, so to speak. There are ex officio members from the state, MTI, DECD, university, and the community college. Then the rest, about 11 members, I believe, if the number is correct, represent small and large businesses in the state, represent communities that would be interested in being considered for launch sites. We're not going to select those sites, but we want them to apply to be considered. So it is community driven, it is private sector driven. And I think the emphasis here is not to weigh it over one business or another, but to create the infrastructure, to create a system that would be inviting to all and any companies that want to get into this new space economy. If it heavily weighs to one particular company, small or large, it's not going to work. That's not what this is all about. So hopefully the corporation will guard against that. And I think the makeup of that corporation will ensure that doesn't happen.
Senator Curry, did you have a follow-up, or is your hand residually up? Okay. Representative Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mrs. Shehata. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
Thank you. It wouldn't, let me just say, wouldn't using Brunswick Landing as the very example of what that has represented to Blue Shift to be able to do and get to the point they're at, wouldn't that be an example of what you're trying to take to the next level?
Yes,
in other words, what would Blue Shift have ever done, and where would they have ever gone? And would we be where we are with those folks if Brunswick had not been there available? I'll let you take it away.
Blue Shift is a very entrepreneurial company. Its founder, Sasha Derry, is a colleague of mine. He's a member of my board. of directors over at the consortium. He's also a member of the steering committee. He is following his business plan. He is following the pressures from his investors. And it's going to cost a little more than he anticipated. It's going to require, he needs to address a lot of regulations. He needs to address a lot of community issues. And what he recognizes is that this corporation is going to facilitate all of that, not only for him, but for others, to make it easier to enter into the market here in Maine. The bill that this corporation, the bill, the makeup is really modeled after Brunswick Landing, the creation of the Mid-Coast Regional Authority. Steve Levesque has been working on this for us for some time. And the notion of establishing an entity that will facilitate the development of a brick and mortars by leveraging the assets at Brunswick Landing, Loring Air Force Base, and other places in the state facilitates that effort to bring in the companies in there. So it's really trying to skid the wheel, so to speak, or to get the wheel going and maximize the opportunities for the businesses to participate here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Austin. Are there any further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Shahada. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Mr. Daniele, you are up next. Ms. Reed, if when you move out, Mr. Shahada, you can move in. I'm not sure if Gregory Falco is in, but either Gregory Falco and Carl Flora, please. Good morning, Mr. Daniele. How are you? On mute still, yep.
Wait for it, wait for it. Hopefully it's brilliant. But
okay, the floor is yours, and we're just kind of reminding everyone and attendees and you, we're trying to stick to the 3 minutes on our presentations would be great. Thanks.
You bet, and the clock is starting now. I'm going to treat this like a satellite support. So I'm going to go to my notes, and pardon if you have any facial expressions. I won't see them for the remainder of my 3 minutes, but I'll try to yield as much time back as possible. So I'd like to thank first and everybody here at the board, and hopefully I recite it properly, but Lima Delta 1923. I just want to go on record to support this initiative. So on behalf of the Giuseppe Space Enterprises, I want to, like I said, go on record and support this initiative. My name is Jason Daniele. I'm a retired Air Force space operator of 28 years, and I'm a Mainer. I graduated from Grady Gloucester High School, 1989. I've lived in Winthrop. I went to school there in 6th and 7th grade on Little Cobbossee Lake. And after being away for 28 years from my friends and family, due to a lack of support in my technical and professional career being in the military, I am home. Simply put, I am home. I'm ready to bring the decades of experience of my leadership and my experiences in innovation and instruction to this great state. In my new role, I'm switching my uniform with the uniform I have on now, even though I'm a little bit dressed up in my uniform today for today's events. I'm very well at ease in my flannels. So as a CEO of a newly formed space systems company, I really wanted to jump into a lot of the questions that you proposed earlier, but I think a lot of people who know me well, they'll give me an award for keeping my mouth shut and waiting for my turn. I'm not a man of very few words. So between myself and the 16 members of my company that we just started just 2 months ago, we represent 20 years of pioneering space systems operations for America's greatest and innovative space programs. We represent experience from all the major weapon systems and space platforms in the U.S. Space Force. Combined, we have launched over 25 satellites, commanded, engineered, and architected the U.S. Air Force and Space Force inventory as today. And just a short 6 months ago, when I was active in the architecting of General Raymond's Space Vision 2030. I'll do my utmost, like I said, to stay within my 3 minutes time and continue on with question and answers. But simply put, I want to say the time is right now. Technology is being developed, and what seemed impossible in just 3 years ago is possible. Tenfold the cost of flying and putting a payload in space has come down from $10,000 a pound, now down to $1,600 a pound in today's market. The economic impact, it's not so easy as is right now, depending on the mission that we have. But I was personally responsible for a $946 million space systems pipeline, and that was just in the LA market. So that's the acquisitions arm of the United States Air Force. So the economic impact is incredible for this great state. Leadership, experience.
Daniela, if you could wrap up in the next few seconds and we'll.
Yes, I will. Thank you. I appreciate that. Giuseppe Space represents leadership and the experience that will make this effort a success, both in mission assurance and mission capability and low risk approach. I yield my time back to the board and be happy to answer as many questions as I have time for.
Thank you. Questions from the committee, starting with Senator Searway.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering, what do you deal with on the security end of something like this? I know, when there's satellites, I'm sure other countries look at those sites of interest. So what do you do for security on those?
So security for each mission is a little bit different. And I like to just briefly say that down from cyber to the operations in space and on celestial ground, if you will, from ground station to the mission and with that data back. Each mission will have its own level of security and cyber blanket, if you will, put on that. But as far as the DoD aspect and civilian is a little bit different, but different regulations. But if you're talking strictly civil space, really you want to be able to protect your asset for any proprietary data, whether it be intrusion, spoofing, or the protection of that data so that it is actually being used for the right purpose. And you provide assured access for the right users and that it's available for the intent of the life of the program. So really you would have to take a look at the mission of your payload and apply a security or a cyber protection plan that's appropriate for that mission. And so sometimes you have a certain level, depending on the military application, but on civil level, mostly it's down to protection of proprietary data and making sure your users have access.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Dinelli, so in your experience in working, all across the country, all across the world with this, what is going to bring somebody to Maine when you're like, we've got this new awesome program, this new company, what have you, but you're in Silicon Valley working with Jeff Bezos on his, whatever he's doing, his new venture or something. What is going to shift you from that sort of like being in where all of the new technologic stuff is happening to coming to Northern Maine or wherever that is to say like, hey, wait, this is a really good spot to be. So how's that marketing going to take place? And is the market open to saying, yeah, let's go all the way to the East Coast and set shop there?
That's a great question. Just let me answer that by first stating that Giuseppe Space Enterprises, we have representation in LA, Colorado, Cape Canaveral, a little bit in DC soon, but here in space, excuse me, the space complex, I know the vernacular could be a little different, but specifically I'm setting up a company here directed to civil space and spaceport activities. My direction or my involvement is strictly for the sake of Maine and to see Maine prosper. So to answer some of the questions, Maine provides a unique opportunity for all the folks that have been putting in the hard work in space, the landing. I just call it the landing, but that opportunity is for innovation and technology. The one thing that I see that is incredible about the location of Maine is the access to space. So technology with the launch vehicles is allowing you to reach those polar orbits, those HEO orbits in LEO and MEO. It's really going to drive, I think, innovation when you have technology that allows your payloads to get into those orbits for the same price. But unlike the southern launch locations, and specifically in the military, you have Vandenberg and you have Cape Canaveral, those places have a lot of weather implications. So you got lightning, you got hurricanes, and you also have other storms to magnitudes that will wave off a launch. But here in Maine, you have snowstorms. You don't have the other warm weather implications. So launching in your launch windows in the range, as far as when you can do that, will drive that innovation and that availability. And you will see my predictions, and this is just my humble predictions, is that Maine will provide a better launch window and availability for launch support. But that is just one aspect of a base in a military spaceport. Like Terry and some of the others before me will explain, it's the back shops, it's the engineering, it's the cyber teams, it's the ability to manufacture and have combat bus operations where you swap out payloads. And so to get into that, it would be probably another couple of hours of, just explaining the different facets. But think about it, if you look at the analogy of having an airport and a mission with, say, F-16s, there's a lot more that goes on behind the back scenes and to keep those vehicles operational. Same thing with the spaceport. It's really the location of where your call it spacecraft or your launch vehicle is going. It's going to dictate all the other support and revenue and economic impacts.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that you have weapon systems people on staff, so you might be able to answer this. Do you see any aspect of the potential Maine spaceport being used by either the military sector or defense contractors?
I think the opportunity is there. When you have a launch vehicle site, and just say a pad site, it's up to the governing body of that location to utilize that spot. Just like you were talking earlier, private sector. Well, I think what's working really well right now in the space race is you have private sector and you have government sector. And what the government is realizing, private sector is the ones that are leading innovation. Just like if you take a page from the history books, the reason why we're all using computers is because, for example, Windows was an open source code and those IBM platforms were proliferated. Well, now, due to SpaceX and those similar companies, they're finding a way to do it more affordable, faster, more reliable, and more relevant to the missions that not only space sector, but the military sector is wanting to utilize them for. So I think it's really up to the space port itself or the complex and how much revenue they want to manage. And not only that, but it has to go to the manifest. So flight operations dictates how many launches you can do safely in a time period. And all that is, I think, would be TBD, but it's a great question. I think it's one of those things we can solve moving down forward with this initiative.
Thank you.
Representative Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Jason, what a wonderful surprise. Class of 93, would that be right?
89 for myself, ma'am.
Oh, okay. All right, going back a little further. That's okay.
That's okay.
That's
I owe you an
okay.
apology, though.
Why?
Because you often mention NOAA, and that's the DMSP satellite system of which I worked for 6 years. The warm button that you referred to was broken on flight 14 and was never repaired due to budgets. So unfortunately, that's why we have the snow. I'm a space geek.
Have you got any cold now?
Right now,
Oh
it's
my
just full on cold.
That's a riot. Thank you. Listen, I have to just say, if I may, Madam Chair, Gray New Gloucester thanks you so much for your work, and we're really proud of your success. And I think the biggest thing is you are a perfect example for this committee to see a living young man come back to Maine, come back home, and share your expertise and help us again grow our seedlings and nourish what we have here. And what an incredible thing to have the rugged coast of Maine finally be looked at with such as an example of wonderful opportunity and a place to have this happen. So thank you again, and I hope we can have more conversations sometime soon.
I cannot wait, and thank you for that. And just to go on record, I'm already thinking about ways to give back to the young minds of Maine through a grant program that I'll establish and talk about at another time. But between grants to scholars and just kids that need an opportunity, we provide that opportunity.
Mr. Janelli, we're going to stick to the bill at hand.
Gotta get it in there.
And Representative Austin, just a little nudge reminding you to throw a question on the end there next time.
I forgot to say, don't you think?
Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. Your words humble me. I appreciate you.
Don't you think that we can't give all the credit to Gray New Gloucester, but Winthrop needs a little bit too, considering you're a partial Winthrop alumni and our last presenter is a Winthrop resident, right? So,
Roger that. It's all about the roots.
The committee have any further questions for Mr. Janelli? Seeing none, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you all.
Next up, we have Carl Flora and Ms. Reed, if you could move over, if Carl Hoos is in the attendee room. If not, then Dan Kolosky. Mr. Flora, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, members of the committee. My name is Carl Flora, and I'm here to testify in support of LD 1923, an act to establish the Maine Space Corporation. I can't really say anything and offer any greater clarity to the issues you've been discussing than what Terry Shahada has already done. He's made some excellent points. I would like to say that the Loring Development Authority is excited to be a potential host location for portions of the Maine Space Complex. And we look forward to continuing to work on this effort. I do think it's important for the state to formally establish the Maine Space Corporation as a quasi-state entity with a public mission that supports the emergence of this new industry. Creating a high-level, formally sanctioned entity to push forward sends a clear signal to key industry players and entities like NASA, defense agencies, and aerospace companies that Maine is serious about and committed to the development of this industry. So with that, I really don't have anything else to say other than I wish you well as you consider this, and be happy to answer any questions or participate in the work session.
Thank you, Mr. Flora. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Oh, wait, Senator Searway.
Thank you, Matt. A question on the language that's being proposed for this corporation. And you probably was involved in the first time this grew. Is there any concerns of some of the language that being forward to us? I mean, that we should take a look.
There's one little one section in the bill that I've already discussed with Terry that relates to the employment tax. It's set up as potentially competing claims on the same pool of money that would be tax withholdings, state income tax withholdings from employees at the various portions of the space complex. To the extent that there's employees based at Loring, we've got competing claims on the same tax revenues. So the same would be true at Brunswick.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you for your time today, Mr. Flora.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Dan Kolosky, and Ms. Reed, if you could, I don't see CJ LaSalle in the attendees, but if you could move in Steve Levesque in the meantime, that would be great. Thank you. And Mr. Kolosky, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Chair Roberts, Chair Curry, and members of the committee. Thank you for giving me a little time today. My name is Dan Kolosky. I am faculty director here at the Rue Institute in Portland, Maine, which, for those who are not familiar, is a new regional campus of Northeastern University that was founded here in Maine last year, actually 2 years ago, with an economic development mission for the state of Maine. Our focus here at the Rue is fundamentally to train the next generation of talent in the tech and digital economies, and it's in that spirit that that I'm here to support or express my support for LD 1923. I spent 20 years in software. I've lived in Maine now for over 17 years actually this year. What I would like, hopefully you received a letter that I wrote as part of your packet, but what I'd like to add to that letter is that my experience in software has taught me that industries spring up when there is critical mass and a cluster. And as we think about helping Maine build an economy for the next generation of economic growth is coming in the data and digital economy. A strong adjacency to the data and digital economy is the aerospace industry. The bill specifically calls out the need for data-centric and analytic-centric talent in order to be a thriving partner in the space industry. We completely agree here at the Rue, and would argue that the simultaneous investment in industries that can leverage this kind of talent are precisely what's required to build the critical mass that can allow the state to benefit from these things. I think it was Representative Hassenfuss asked, why would people come to Maine as opposed to go to Seattle or the Valley where there's already this critical mass? The answer is they will if there are jobs and a critical mass, and more than their first job, they need their second job, right? So as we think about how to build a dynamic economy thriving in the digital arena and all the hundreds of students that we have at the Rue Institute who can contribute to that, we want places for them to be able to contribute to the state, the space industry, aerospace, and the adjacencies in data and analytics of satellite data are an excellent opportunity to do that. So we would encourage the state to invest aggressively in this area. We at the Rue are already working with the Space Grants Consortium on a variety of projects and will continue to do so. But as others have said, the opportunity is now to make an investment in this area, and we encourage you to consider to do so. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions as well.
Thank you. Questions from the committee. Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have any idea what initial investment versus, maintenance for years to come would look like? Is it the large chunk of it is upfront, or is it going to be every year is the same amount to cover our nuts, so to speak, with innovation and stuff like that?
Well, I would certainly yield to my colleagues who are closer to the facilities portion of the industry on that one. In my observation, what is going to be required are beyond the sort of facilities conversation is an ongoing ecosystem development activity in the supporting tech talent, and that's going to be required for that. That may not require state investment per se, but that is something that academic institutions like ours will certainly be heavily involved in. I'm not the best person to answer questions about how the facilities investment would play out, though. I apologize.
Thank you. Just a reminder, I've been seeing things kind of pop out in the chat that are not technically related. So just kind of reminder to everyone not to use it for discussion. Representative La Rochelle.
Thank you, Representative Roberts. Good morning, Mr. Kowalski. I don't know if you're the person to answer this, but do you have a sense, the drafted bill talks about the facilitation of high-tech jobs and job creation. Any type of projection as to what we're talking about for jobs and how students at the Rue Institute or our public universities might be able to kind of filter into those?
I can certainly answer the latter, which is that when you think about the jobs that are going to be required to support the industry, they include the aerospace engineering type jobs, which both students from Maine institutions as well as the Rue Institute are being trained to support. But they are also going to require a substantial amount of data-centric, artificial intelligence related talent. If you look at what's going on in satellite work today, the value once the satellite is up in what we do with the information that it generates, and that set of talent is the same talent that is also being leveraged to build the digital economy of tomorrow, whether that's e-commerce or blockchain and artificial intelligence and all of these things. So both the Rue Institute and our other academic partners in the state, such as University of Maine system, are training the generation of people who can flow into those jobs. So from that perspective, it's a perfect alignment. In terms of numbers, again, I would defer to Terry and the team who are closer to the particular industry. We're already working on projects for which we could easily see a need for teams of students and employees in the tens or hundreds, depending on sort of the scale of what is being ultimately agreed upon from a launch perspective. But we are certainly interested in being supportive of this, and our students will be optimized for participation in here. So we're delighted to help contribute to that in any way that we can.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned artificial intelligence, and I know at the University of Maine we also have a program.
Absolutely.
Yes, from my but I was just saying from my perspective, that's an important consideration in terms of bringing students into Maine or students who are in Maine who can use those degrees in Maine. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Kowalski, for joining us today. Up next, we have Steve Levesque. And Ms. Reed, if you could pull over Ben Lucas in the meantime, that would be great. Thank you. Mr. Levesque, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. It's really great to see a lot of old friends here. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, distinguished members of the Committee of Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement and Business. My name is Steve Levesque. I'm the president of SHL Enterprise Solutions, an economic development consulting firm based in Greenville, but I grew up in Auburn. And I'm here to testify in support of LD 1923. As an economic development professional who has dedicated the past 35 years for the betterment of Maine and its communities, I fully support the creation of the Maine Space Corporation. In my past capacities as Executive Director of the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority, Redeveloping Naval Air Station Brunswick, and the Commissioner of the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development, as well as serving on the board at the Loring Development Authority, I know too well the challenges Maine faces in competing for new age technology business investment and creation of good paying quality jobs for our people. It's been very rare circumstances where Maine has a competitive advantage with other states for these types of opportunities, and for various reasons have been articulated. I think we do now. Amongst the other benefits from the Maine Space Corporation, it will allow for the creation of the Maine Space
Go ahead, and we got a quorum, don't we? 1, 2, 3.
Representative Bernard?
Go ahead.
Representative Bernard.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, hold on one second. Either you mute
Hi, good
Representative
morning, everyone.
Bernard.
I'm Senator Jim Dill. I want to welcome you to the ACF committee meeting today. And we have a couple public hearings and a couple work sessions, and we will introduce ourselves. And as we introduce ourselves, would you let Cheryl know you are actually in the State House complex someplace, because she has to mark you down as being there. So with that, I will start with Senator Black.
I don't have hosting privileges.
Chairman Dill, Russ Black from Wilton.
Eva's gonna have to do it.
Senate District.
Ms. Reed, are you there?
There we go. Okay.
Hello?
Sorry about that, Mr. Levesque.
All right, I'll try to continue. I'm kind of reading from my testimony, so
Okay.
bear with me a little bit. As I said, the Maine Space Corporation will allow for the creation of the Maine Space Complex, which is really a multi-locational complex at Brunswick, Limestone, and in Washington County for the research, development, application of new space industries. I believe that this initiative is exciting and transformative. It's really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to help launch Maine into a rapidly growing new space economy and advance our organic and future workforce and Maine-based supply chain industries that already exist, in addition to attracting some new high-tech industries and knowledge employees to the areas of the state which are currently struggling economically. It also effectively utilizes the already built taxpayer-funded infrastructure at both the former military installations at Loring and Brunswick. And the key is, and I know some of the questions before regarding, it's about infrastructure. And if you look at other states and other countries that have spaceports, there really is a public-private partnership where the public's investment is really in the infrastructure, the basic infrastructure to support the private sector and doing the innovation and creating the jobs. And I think that's the model that we're looking at here that's worked very well in Brunswick and is working at Loring as well. So thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of LD 1923. I ask the committee to recognize the vital importance of this game-changing initiative for our economy and move this bill to pass. And just a note, thank you for all you do for the people of Maine, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque. Questions from the committee. Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You might be the wrong person to ask this, but do you have any idea of the scope of work that would be needed to retrofit Loring and Brunswick from their current form, or are they already ready to go?
Well, I think Loring and Brunswick would probably be able to support clearly the mission control, the R&D, the data analytics, and the facility is already there. And that's what I was referring to. They're already there. So the retrofit for those facilities is just going to be continuing the investments that have been made in those places. Clearly, a vertical launch facility is going to be needed to accommodate this, and that's probably one of the bigger investments that would need to be made. And if you look at some of the other examples around the country, like in Wallops in Virginia, which I got to tour a few years ago, that's a public and private sector funded launch facility. And Cape Canaveral, which I was there a couple of weeks ago, that's the same type of thing. They provided the government provided the pad, and the private sector uses those facilities. So it's really a combination of investments that go into those. But clearly Limestone, Loring, and Brunswick are ready to go to support, a good 75% of this initiative already.
Thank you.
Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Mr. Levesque. Thank you so much for presenting. I thought you captured for me what I've been trying to think through. This is so far over my head in terms of the technical aspects, but I do understand critical mass. I do know how important it is that you have enough people together to sort of work off each other to create something new. So one of the things that occurs to me is that in terms of that state and private partnership, we have the Loring School of Mathematics and Science. So we're bringing some of our best and brightest from across the country to Loring for that training. And I'm wondering if there have begun to, and I'm sorry I didn't think to ask Mr. Kolowski this. I was excited to see that already the Roux Institute is having conversations with the Space Consortium and some of the other players here. I'm wondering if there's been any conversations with the School of Math and Science.
I can't answer that directly, but I know the Maine Space Consortium has been working with all the high schools across the state, including the charter school there, and obviously the whole community college and university system. So it's really kind of an integrated approach to advance the whole workforce going forward, and to basically try to connect it with the new age here.
Representative Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Steve. Good
morning.
to have you with us. I don't know who is in the lineup, so I'm just going to bounce this one off from you. Our committee members have been asking about the infrastructure at Loring and Brunswick, but you've probably, if you've been on any of the Zooms or webinars, you've probably heard me mention this to Sasha about the facility we have, or the government has, at Cutler. And you may not really be able to blow that out, but that has been part of a conversation. And I just want to share that with the committee, or I want to let you share that with the committee, that's the kind of thing that the search that's been going on. Could you make any comment on that at all?
I'd be happy to. I mean, there is a large government-owned facility in Cutler. And I know that there's been a number of discussions with them, and it's not uncommon at all for a state or another entity to basically lease a piece of federal government property. I think there's some really great opportunities to do that here. Obviously, you kind of once again, you combine some infrastructure that's already paid for by the taxpayer. So clearly that is certainly a very strong interest from me and my role in kind of helping push this along.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions from the committee for Mr. Levesque? Seeing none. Thank you.
You guys have a great day. Thank you.
Next up, we have Ben Lucas, and Ms. Reed, if you could move over Matthew Marks in the meantime, that would be great. Thank you. Good. Well, it's still morning. Mr. Lucas, how are you? The floor is yours.
Good. Good morning, Representative Roberts, Senator Curry, members of the IDEA Committee. My name is Ben Lucas. I live in Portland, and I am here today representing the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. The Maine State Chamber of Commerce is pleased to be testifying in support of LD 1923. I want to start by thanking Senator Daughtry for bringing this legislation forward. The Chamber has supported this concept for several years, going back to when this issue was first discussed in the 129th legislature. But as you've heard today, due to the pandemic, was not one of the issues that was able to get enacted on. At a high level, the Chamber is supportive of establishing the Maine Spaceport Corporation because it'll generate new investment into Maine, which will help economic development and job creation. It'll also help guide a new and innovative industry in Maine, which will help attract young people to our state and also keep our youth in the state. Maine is well positioned to be a leader in aerospace technology in the global market. There are 4 key advantages that I wanted to highlight today that put us in this position. First, you've already heard a great deal about our eastern and northern geographic location. Second, our well-established manufacturing and construction sector. Third, the potential workforce that we have with our higher education systems at the University of Maine, the Maine Community College System, and the newly established Brew Institute in Portland. These institutions are well positioned to develop a workforce around STEM education. And lastly, we have the existing infrastructure in place at Loring and Brunswick. The former military infrastructure at these 2 locations are ideal facilities to create launch pads and host the spaceport complex. I'd also like to note that LD 1923 helps support Governor Mills's 10-year strategic plan with the goal of adding 75,000 new people to the workforce. To conclude, the committee has already heard a lot from the experts today on this matter. They've been able to speak much more about the technical aspects than myself, but this creates an enormous opportunity for investment into Maine's economy and create potentially thousands of new jobs. The Chamber is happy to be engaged in this process and lend our support wherever is needed. The Maine State Chamber of Commerce strongly supports 1923 and would encourage this committee to vote to pass. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. I'm happy to answer any questions now, and I will be available for the work session.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Collmore.
I made it through the wormhole.
Hi, thank you. I apologize. My hand button didn't want to raise quickly enough. Thank you, Mr. Lucas, for being here. I'm just curious, you had mentioned the community colleges and the universities for training, and I just wondered if you're also thinking about, and I've heard them mentioned multiple times throughout today, and I just wanted to make sure we're also thinking about the CTEs. In that for those students who may not go on to the 4-year or 2-year colleges. Is that something that's in that blanket that you're thinking of as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that question, Representative Collmore. Clearly with this new industry, it's going to create, potentially thousands of new jobs. And we're going to need really the K through 12 education system, but more importantly, the CTE starting from really grades 9 through 12 to be engaged to help meet the demand of this new sector. So we're certainly willing to work with the CTEs and make sure that they're promoting STEM education and other manufacturing, typical construction sectors that will be willing to work in that. But thank you for bringing that up. It's an important one to highlight, and I certainly have more around the K through 12 and CTEs that'll be provided in my written testimony that I'll submit to the committee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Lucas? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, we have Matthew Marks.
Thank you. Representative Roberts, Senator Curry, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Matt Marks, and I live in Scarborough, Maine, and I represent the Associated General Contractors of Maine. Happy to be here today. Actually heard this bill originally right, I think it was pre-pandemic, as Senator Daughtry discussed earlier, and followed Blue Shift throughout their launch our industry found that to be very exciting. It reached out, several of our members have reached out to talk to them about what their next steps are going to be. Got some great positive feedback, and we're excited about the opportunity, not only for working within the facilities that, in my opinion, are long overdue to get some attention. I think what Mr. Levesque has done in Brunswick has been tremendous. Would love to see more of that happen on spaces like that in Loring Air Force Base as well. So that to us is very exciting to see sort of some developments, some new initiatives that obviously bring in the STEM education programs. And looking from afar, it's been admirable to watch the industry as new here to Maine to reach out so quickly to not only to CTEs, but to our community colleges to educate kids in K through 12 about the opportunities that they will present. Ancillary to that, we feel pretty strongly that, growth in that industry, and by moving forward with this, public-private partnership could truly benefit Maine. I really like the questions that Representative Bernard had and Representative Andrews specifically about whether there was value to adding another agency to do this. And I too took a look at that. Some of the larger states that have had similar investment, obviously at a much greater scale, like Texas and Florida, found similar investments made a lot of sense. For me, I sort of looked at the three bullets that they were working on in those states. One was the ability to attract and train and develop local workers, which I think is something most people in Maine would support, that ability to keep our young people here and working in science, technical education, math skills. The second piece was to bring in and attract those additional businesses that support this industry. That includes manufacturing opportunities as the technology increases, and obviously construction jobs, my interest in building facilities that would support that high-tech industry. The third piece for us was really to work on a lot of the regulatory issues and the laws that will become a bit more complicated, I assume, over time, as we see more, inversion of this sort of, new industry here in Maine, and having, new questions asked by our neighbors and fellow Mainers. For us, when we look at Florida, for example, there are 4 or 5 projects that they're Space Florida, very similar to what's being proposed here, we're able to launch. One was a horizontal integration facility. That's an 88,000 square foot facility that works on manufacturing. They have a launch complex, Embry Air Engineering and Tech Center, and a OneWeb satellite manufacturing facility. So to me, I think there's a model for you all to vet, look through this. We certainly, at first glance here and listening to the testimony today and previous years, support the concept, and we're hoping that this will open up the door for more private investment here in Maine, and hopefully we can keep some more kids working in high tech here. So I conclude with that. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you happen to know the name of the Texas entity that you mentioned?
Yep, the Texas entity is Texas Aerospace Commission. I looked at the structure of both that and Space Florida. They're very similar to what I think is proposed here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Marks, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. Up next, we have Stephen, I hope I said this right. Is it Von Voigt?
Von Vogt, yeah, you did good.
The floor is yours.
Yes. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and distinguished members of the committee, my name is Steve Von Vogt. I live in Portland, and I am the Managing Director of the Maine Composite Alliance. Like many of us in Maine, I have lots of jobs. My day job involves energy development, ocean engineering, and repurposing of industrial facilities. I'm here to testify in support of LD 1923. The Maine Composites Alliance was established in 1979 as a nonprofit that exists to support the development of Maine's advanced materials industry. In addition to its ongoing mission, MCA established the Composite Engineering Research Lab, CERL, which is housed and operated in partnership with the University of Southern Maine. We got our start at Tech Place. CERL is one of the finest advanced material development labs in the Northeast and is devoted to growing Maine's advanced materials industry and adapting it for creating jobs and opportunities for Maine companies. Amongst Searle's many Maine-based clients are companies that will directly benefit from the establishment of a Maine space complex. Those include Blue Shift and Fiber Materials in Biddeford. In addition to that, however, I'm excited about the new opportunities that the establishment of the Maine space complex will enable. And this is for companies like Tex-Tech Industries, Auburn Manufacturing, Compotech in Bangor, and Auburn Manufacturing, all of which are advanced materials companies that can or will play in this space. I was on the phone last Friday with Lyman Morse Boat Building in Thomaston, talking to them about this opportunity. And interestingly enough, I expect them fully to be engaged also. I just want to, I don't know much about rockets, but I know a lot about advanced materials, and I see this as a huge opportunity for Maine's advanced materials industry, where we certainly have a competitive advantage. I'll take any questions.
Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if you could just explain more about how that would work with the advanced materials, supplying this new boom, I guess, in the spaceport, kind of supply chain Maine help, that sort of thing.
Some of it is conjecture on what could happen, but it's very likely to happen based on our experience. Fiber Materials is a great example of a company that's squarely placed in this space. But Tex-Tech Industries in Monmouth, for example, produces woven materials which have ballistics or property shielding or heat shielding properties. Auburn Manufacturing is great in that they have many materials that will play into this space. But companies even like Lyman Morse can make things out of composites that eventually will play in this space, including, bear with me, sorry, I shut off my phone. Bear with me, companies like, or even boat building companies could produce components that will be used in this space. So I think I would not limit your imagination to anything that seems obvious. I think it will be very surprised at how our companies will benefit from this.
Senator Seaway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Von Vogt. I really appreciate you coming. This bill has been setting for a while, and looked it over several times, and maybe you came across something that caught your eye that should be improved. Just asking if you know of anything that you caught your interest on that, improve on it.
I'm not aware of anything new. I am glad to see that the representation on the board is broad. I'm also glad to see that the locations are diverse, because I think the industry in Maine that can participate in this will stretch from York all the way up to Presque Isle. So I think that they've done a great job crafting it. And I think that my experience with MIRA and other public partner, other repurposing of governmental units has been great for the Maine economy. I should also mention one of my other day jobs is I'm the co-chair of the Maine Economic Growth Council, which puts out the Measures of Growth report, which Senator Curry kindly referenced.
Thank you.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you see the potential sites as all having the same kind of infrastructure build out, or would they be different, trying to serve different purposes in functionality, if that makes sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I'm probably not the best guy to answer that question, but I know enough to know that the infrastructure build outs will vary depending on the purpose and use of the site and location. So I think that we've got a good base to start with. We've got government facilities that have been repurposed, and I think that we're in it was news to me, a surprisingly great position to exploit this.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Next up, we have Emily Dwinnels.
That's right. Good morning, Ideas Committee. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and distinguished members of the committee. As you just heard, my name is Emily Dwinnels, and I'm here to support the LD 1923. I'm currently the project director of the Main Space Complex Strategic Planning Process, and I became engaged with MSGC, Terry's organization, 3 years ago to shepherd this concept through feasibility, business planning, and development to where we are today, which is with the strategic plan. I'm also a resident of Brunswick, where I work out of the Brunswick Landing, and have come to understand the enormous potential establishing a main space complex, and more formally today, the Main Space Corporation could have, not only in Brunswick, but across the state. I'd love to take a moment just to sincerely thank Senator Daughtry for sponsoring the bill, and to Senators Breen, Searway, Hickman, and Representatives Roberts, Dodge, Becto, and McCray for co-sponsoring the bill. So I had a speech prepared, but I really wanted to circle back onto a couple of the questions, since I've sort of been leading the design and development of the project sort of from the feasibility stage, to clarify a couple of points. So one of the areas that I wanted to address was the urgency and need around the Main Space Corporation today. One of the reasons, or one of the major reasons, we decided to form this quasi-state entity is because we need capital, and the quasi-state entity maximizes the opportunity to raise funds. A nonprofit would not be able to take risk capital from the venture community. A solely private organization would not be allowed to receive money from the federal government. And so the quasi-state entity is actually maximizing the opportunities, and the need for urgency now is that the infrastructure bill, among others in the federal government, is releasing opportunity to apply for funding that the Main Spaceport would like to go after. So forming the corporation will allow us to apply for those monies and hopefully secure some of them for operations, the remainder of planning, as well as implementation and development going forward. I think the other important point there to address around the Space Corporation is that MSGC has been shepherding this concept along since sort of the inception of the idea back in 2017 through the stages I just mentioned: feasibility, business planning, and implementation, and to the strategic planning phase. They don't have room in their organization to support this in perpetuity. So it really needs to come into a place where it has a home, a permanent home, to drive the development forward. So I just wanted to clarify that I think the third reason that's also been touched upon that I wanted to highlight is that there is competition. The Michigan is pursuing a very similar concept and has a considerable amount of energy going forward into this. They have a slight complication in the sense they have to fly over populated areas, an advantage that Maine has and can drive forward with if we have the opportunity to stand this up under the corporation. I would say just in general to think about the context and the national context of the spaceport world. We have two sites on the West Coast that are typically used for polar launch. One, as we heard earlier, was Kodiak, Alaska. The other is down outside of Los Angeles. And that is typically used for... What?
Can I have you wrap up in the next 15 seconds?
Yep, no problem. That's typically used for military manifest. So there aren't great commercial operations or options to launch due to the logistics of getting to Alaska and the priority of military in Los Angeles. There's nothing on the East Coast that serves this market right now.
Thank you. Questions from the committee. Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the reasons that the space complex would need to come into existence is to kind of act as a clearinghouse for federal grants.
That's right.
Okay. And secondly, who is funding the feasibility study that you've been working on?
So the feasibility study, business planning, and today the strategic plan was funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce's EDA as well as MTI, and supported by the Maine Space Grant Consortium as well.
Representative La Rochelle.
Thank you, Representative Roberts. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Thank you for clarifying some of those questions that we've been kind of throwing out there throughout this process.
You're welcome.
I was wondering, you know, as part of the strategic planning, I mean, we heard someone say thousands of jobs. We've heard, you know, different industries are going to be impacted. Have you guys worked on kind of what your projections are for job growth in the state, even just directly, not even talking about indirectly, for this program?
Yeah, so over the next 25 years, it's anticipated to be anywhere from 37 to 6,500 roughly jobs. And that's jobs including the one-time job of constructing the facility as well as ongoing operations of the launch site, and includes as well the data and analytic component as well as the R&D impacts as well. So that's sort of like the broad-based impacts.
Great.
Other spaceports across the country release economic impact assessments or statements on not just how they directly impact employment, but the revenue and other monies they bring to the state that are pretty huge. Mars, the one in Virginia, for instance, estimates $1 billion of impact on the local economy each year. Granted, they've been up and running for a long time, but they are serving a similar size rocket class as we would. So I would expect over time to ramp up to a number somewhere close to that.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Welcome.
Are there any further questions for Ms. Dwinells? Seeing none. Okay, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
That's all I have on my list for speaking for. If there's anyone in the attendee list who is wishing to speak for this bill, if you could raise your hand. Nope. Okay. I don't have anyone speaking against, so if that is not the case, please raise your hand in the attendee list. And the same thing for neither for nor against, or anyone else that we have missed somehow. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. So before we close this up, I would like to go to the committee for any requests from Ms. Olson for the work session. Representative Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was remiss. I should have asked Steve. I thought of it at the very end of his engagement with us. I don't think anyone had brought up or addressed recovery of rocket. And I'm wondering if that also doesn't add another section to our economy. Someone is going to need to do that. And I could be in total error, but I don't think so. So maybe if we could get just someone responding to that at some point.
Thank you. Senator Searway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if Rachel could check out the Terry situation, employment tax issue that was for corporations on competing claims on the same tax revenue for the work session.
Yep, great. I grabbed that out of the chat.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure who should address it, but perhaps Mr. Shihada or the Rue Institute, but we're such an opportunity. We're talking about growth. We're talking about jobs. I'm just so aware of the lack of housing throughout the state of Maine. And I just wonder where that fits in with helping create a fertile landscape for this to take root. And I would love to hear from Mr. Koloski at the Rue Institute about that, and Mr. Sharada as well, and anyone else who has a thought about it. Because at the moment, we're losing young people who want to be here because there isn't affordable housing.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you. I'm just curious as to time frame to get a fiscal note on this.
So I'll just address that. Generally speaking, a fiscal note it is not common to get a fiscal note on an original bill before the committee takes action on it. Generally speaking, the fiscal note gets issued after the committee has taken action on the bill, whether it's ought to pass or with an amendment. So before it would be finalized, a fiscal note would be issued and shared with the committee. So if the fiscal note changed the opinion of anyone on the committee, the bill could be reconsidered because of that new information.
Is there any way to get one early? Because I think this is a pretty big bill that we should be looking at the economic cost.
I could try to request the fiscal note in advance, but again, I think given the time that we're facing in order to accomplish our work, I'm not sure we would get a fiscal note expeditiously.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Austin.
Thank you. Rachel, was there one presented at the point that we ended off on when it was presented in the 129th?
Sure. I did. So obviously I wasn't around in the 129th, but I did go back and look at the information. The bill from the 129th that was submitted was a resolve to establish the Maine Spaceport Complex Leadership Council. I have not read it thoroughly, so I may change this information when it comes before you, but the end result of that bill appears to have been to complete the strategic plan that has been mentioned a number of times, that appears to, essentially the work appears to have been done. And as they indicated, the report will be ready after the 11th or on the 11th. And so there was a fiscal note, but that fiscal note was related to the work of the study and not on the structure that's being presented today.
I think, if I may I read this, Madam Chair, from
we're just doing requests for Ms. Olson right now so we can get through the public hearing.
Well,
so any request for information?
It is addressed in the chat, Rachel, if that may be of help to you.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, Ms. Olson, so the bill on the 129th that passed unanimously was a resolve, and this bill on the 130th is a completely different animal. Is that correct?
Since I have not had a chance to fully read the original bill, I just scanned it briefly. I'm not comfortable answering that at the moment, but it was a resolve in the 129th.
We have some comparison between the two for the work session, please.
I'll have the bill, which of course is available for everyone to go look at online. It's LD 2092, but I will bring that and the information related to it back during the analysis.
Thank you.
Okay. To wrap that up, having received testimony from all those present today, I will now close the public hearing for LD 1923. We are at what, 11:40. We want to take a 10 or 15 minute just stretch break and then we can circle back. 10, 15, what are we thinking? 2, Representative Austin?
10 minutes is fine for me.
10 minutes. Okay, so we will come back here at 11:50, and then we're going to go through the report backs and to see if the GEA reports any action on that. So we'll see you back then.
Hi, all. I would just want to check my system if everything is good to go. Can somebody just let me know if they hear me?
Copy that.
I can hear you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much.
My computer. So it's been more of a struggle, but thank you. I think I'm in.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
Just give everyone a second to pop on. Okay, so we have to take up possible action on report backs and we have to do some kind of action on our GE reports. Ms. Olson, is it easier if you walk us through one by one? Let's do the report backs first. As far as which ones could possibly have action, and then we'll go from there. You're on mute.
Of course I am. So I had said, sorry, I'd actually had trouble connecting to the audio. So I missed a little bit of the beginning, but I think you were saying you'd like me to walk us through the reports.
You have to go through the reports, but just so we can, I don't want to miss any that we might need to be reporting out on.
Sure. In looking at the reports received by the IDEA Committee document I sent back when we first heard from the reports at the beginning of our work together this session. In terms of reports that really, I mean, the committee could take action on any official report, not a letter, but a report. We had two that the committee asked other agencies to do work for the committee and then to bring their report back. And in both of those cases, there was the ability for the committee to report legislation out as a result of those reports. So the first one is related to LD 195. And the committee asked for a draft registration program for general contractors for home improvement and construction. And then the other was LD 1709, which was a report on a program that could be run called the Maine Smart Buy Report. This was about housing and student loan debt.
Okay, so we'll start with 195, and just a reminder to the committee, we're not at this point debating any merits of any bills or anything like that, just taking a straw poll on whether or not the committee would like to report out legislation. So Senator Curry.
Thank you, Chair Roberts. I would move that we vote in a straw poll to re-refer LD 195 to, and correct me, Ms. Olson, if I'm saying this language wrong, help me correct it, so that we would then be able to report a bill back to us in order to consider it. So a bill based upon the draft registry for that came from that came to us based on LD 195.
Sure. Let me just remind the committee what we're talking about here. This is called a committee bill. So the committee is going to take a procedural vote. This is not a vote on the final language or the final recommendations or the substance of the bill. This is a procedural vote that is, you are voting whether you wish the committee to report out a bill for the purpose of having it referenced back to committee in order to hold a public hearing and to work and take final action on the substance of the bill. So a vote today would not be a vote taking a position on the bill, only that you would like there to be a bill reported out for the purpose of reference back to committee.
That's what I wanted to do.
Okay, motion second. Representative Geiger. Okay. And let's do a roll call on this. Eva. Ms. Olson?
Sorry, just wanted to clarify the vote. So we do have language in the report. Is that what the committee is saying that they would like to have printed as the LD to be reported back?
I think that's what we're going with. I know there's a couple of blanks that need to be filled in. I could probably throw out some arbitrary numbers that we could, work with later at a later point. I know there's some blanks in there.
That was my intention.
So again, reminding the hands up, this is a procedural vote. So Ms. Reed, if you could call the roll.
Representative Geiger,
Yes.
Representative Andrews,
I need some clarification on this before I can vote.
Okay, in regards to we're not voting on the actual substance of any bill, just to report out a bill. And this is just a procedural vote. So it's not, there's no discussion. It's like a tabling motion.
No, I get that, but I'm looking at LD 195 from the first regular session. And I believe it already went through the process, and I could be wrong. Is this the result directing the Department of Professional and Financial Regulation to study a voluntary licensing system for general contractors for home improvement and construction?
And there was a report back of a registration program.
Okay.
With an option for the committee to report out a bill based on that.
Well, I'm looking at the final disposition, and it says finally passed June 20th, 2021. Governor's action unsigned June 20th, 2021.
Sure. I'm just gonna, can I walk us back, Representative Andrews, so we can see, so
Yeah.
we can understand okay. So the committee last session voted on LD 195, which directed the department to create a draft registration for for general contractors for home improvement and construction, and to report that draft as a response to the committee's direction back to the committee this session. We received the report at the beginning of the session, and in that language of the bill, it allows the committee, upon receipt of the report, which in this case is the draft registration program that was requested, the ability for the committee to report out a bill. And the way that the committee does that is to decide that they would like to report out what's called a committee bill. So the committee would take a procedural vote. In this case, Senator Curry has put forward the language as provided in the report, which is the draft registration program. So what the committee is voting on now is, do you want, essentially you're saying you want this to be printed as an LD for the purpose of being referred to committee for your consideration. It's not saying yes or no to the substance of the bill, but only that it is something that committee would like to consider as an official LD.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's the first time we're doing this, so I'm happy to answer procedural questions around the process. Sorry, redundant.
Okay. We'll start the roll call again, just to, so it's clean.
Representative Geiger,
I did have a procedural question about it, which is normally bills go to the revisor's office to be written. We have a draft. Is it going to go to revisers to be completed and then come back to us?
So
yeah, I'm sorry, this is my first
No,
session.
it's
I
okay.
don't know
No,
how
that's
this
a good question. Good question. So the committee needs to take this procedural straw vote, and then my next steps will be to request, essentially I go in and request an LD number. Language will go to be written. So I'll actually draft it, but it will be reviewed by the revisor's office and then printed as an LD. The LD will go on the calendar. Hopefully our goal, I think, would be to get it on the calendar for the next session, which is on the 10th. And then it will be referred back to committee. And then we'll schedule it like any other LD. So public hearing and then work session.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
Ms. Reed, do you want to continue with the roll call after Representative Geiger?
Representative Andrews,
No.
Representative Collmore,
No.
Representative Ducharme,
No.
Senator Searway,
No.
Senator Rafferty,
Yes.
Representative Pebworth,
Yes.
Representative Austin,
No.
Representative Bernard,
No.
Representative Hassenfuss,
Yes.
Representative Lairshell,
Yes.
Representative Roberts,
Yes.
Senator Curry.
Yes.
I believe that was 7 in favor and 6 opposed. That motion passes. Ms. Olson, are there any other steps we need to take with this, or do we move on to the next? You're on mute.
Caught myself. That I believe that those are all the steps we need to take at this time, and we'll go through the process as I just described to Representative Geiger.
Okay. So the next one we have is the report back on 1709. Ms. Olson, can you just clarify what that reporting out of a bill, what kind of motion that needs to be? I don't think any language was provided, right? You're on mute again.
All right, so lots of money in the mute jar for me today, just this afternoon. That is correct. In this report, we asked them to look into a program. This program that they looked into, this type of program, is already operating in 2 other states. So both it was FAME and Maine State Housing Authority who conducted this report, and so they did note that under Maine State Housing Authorities, they have the ability to run such a program like this already, but there are some considerations that the committee could think about in terms of funding, and I think about the sort of the tax implications around debt forgiveness or as a part of your mortgage within the program. Mr. Jorgensen is available in the attendee list as well. Should anyone like to ask more specific questions, as it's been some time since we heard the report. I would need so the vote is that you're asking for an LD to be printed. So I do need some type of substance to put into a draft to submit in order for there to be an LD to come back.
Okay. Looking to the committee for any other questions of Ms. Olson or a motion. Senator Curry.
Thank you, Chair Roberts. I'm happy to put forward a motion to refer to establish a committee bill that with the intention of having it re-referred to this committee for the development of the BISMART program as proposed by the report back from FAME and from FAME and from Maine Housing. And I'm curious as to what additional information you would need in order to be able to do that.
Well, that is, I wish I had an immediate answer to you for this. My memory of the report is that they wouldn't necessarily need statutory language to stand up the program.
But we would need a funding. And so with the intention of putting in, and I will say $10 million.
And that would be to Maine State Housing for the purpose of running such a program.
I believe that's the motion. Is there a second? Representative Pebroth seconded. Ms. Reed, can you call the roll?
Representative Geiger,
Yes.
Representative Andrews,
No.
Representative Collmore,
No.
Representative Ducharme,
No.
Senator Searway,
No.
Senator Rafferty,
Yes.
Representative Pebworth,
Yes.
Representative Austin,
No.
Representative Bernard,
No.
Representative Hassenfuss,
Yeah.
Representative Larochelle,
Yes.
Representative Roberts,
Yes.
Senator Curry.
Yes.
And we have, I believe, 7 in favor, 6 opposed, so that motion passes as well. Ms. Olson, is that for now?
I think so.
That'll do it. Okay.
Yeah. And if I could just note, because we were talking about reports, I did receive another report on career readiness resources, which really wasn't on our radar as it was based on an LD from another committee, but the report was due to our committee as well as education and labor and housing. So I did send that report out and is now on the website as well. And we are anticipating the report back on the softwood pulp industry. It's technically due today, so I'm anticipating receiving that shortly. So that report will be shared as well. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up that we did have, that one was based on work. I don't remember the LD off the top of my head, 7 something, but that should be coming back to us very soon as well.
Okay. So if the committee wants to review the report at some point that Ms. Olson just referenced, and then the pulpwood one, when that comes in, then maybe we'll take those 2 up together once those are both in and we've had a chance to review. Okay, so those 2 are all set. Do we want to move on to the GEA reports? And you can, Ms. Olson, outline for the committee what the possible actions that we do need to take some action and what that might look like.
Sure. Yes, let me.
So I'm sorry, Senator Curry, is your hands up? Is that on purpose?
No, it is not.
Okay.
Sure. So sorry, let me. Just wanted to pull up a document before I get going. So the committee, I think that was me, just feedback. The committee heard reports on the Government Evaluation Act reports from the Maine Development Foundation and the Department of Economic and Community Development last week. I wasn't really tasked with any follow-up except for the information I provided during that work session. So at this point, the committee, so what's going to happen is the committee is going to make a decision on its recommendations regarding the criteria that it used to evaluate these 2 agencies as a part of the reporting and review process. And then I will write a letter that puts forward the findings and any administrative recommendations, and if applicable, which there's no reason that you have to, but if applicable, any legislation necessary to implement those recommendations to the legislature. And any legislative recommendations would look or come in the same form as committee bills like we just dealt with. And so at this point, the committee can do a number of things. It can agree that either agency has fulfilled their purpose and obligations as outlined, and the committee is satisfied. And as I have mentioned before, you can also commend them as well. It doesn't have to be the straightforward, like, check the box. So that's an option. The committee can specify specific follow-up. If there's an area of concern, the committee could decide to follow up with that area of concern and lay out a time frame in which they would like to do that. More discussions and follow-up can of course occur before any type of recommendations are put forward. So really that's where we stand And this report is due by March 15th. So we do have some time, but obviously not a ton of time. So.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The one thing I would just put on the table potentially for improvements to GEA reports would be, I'd like to have the rulemaking activity for any entity that has that authority included in future reports, just so that it's all kind of in one-stop shopping. I appreciate Rachel sending that right to me after our last meeting, but just to have that with everything else to be able to review when you're putting the time in would be good on my end. Thank you.
Anything else in the committee? Questions? Further steps that we would like to take from here? Nope, hands popping up. Representative Hassenfuss.
Just wondering if anybody had any, major concerns or comments or anything. Nothing popped out to me as, but I'm just curious as to what the take of everybody else was.
Representative Andrews.
Thanks. I think that's a good question. I don't have my notes in front of me for the GEAs, to be quite honest with you. I'd have to go through those again before I could put anything together to kind of put my thoughts out there.
Senator Curry.
Thank you, Chair Roberts. I think my first reaction to the DECD report, it's hard to, I'm thinking of both of these at the same time, but they're two different reports and we'll have two different letters, was, they did the commendation for the amount of pivoting that they did in support of businesses in an incredibly changing environment. And so I think that came through in their report, and it came through in lots of different ways. And so that would be one thing that, as part of any letter, I would think we would want to recognize the incredibly hard work that office did in supporting businesses during this time.
Representative Hassenfuss.
Oh yeah, one thing that just spurred in my mind that one I was curious about is the ease of public access to the programs and the agencies, and there's a lot of good work that's done by DECD, but can people on the ground really get everything that they need, especially given the pandemic? Like, were people able to access all of the different loan programs or grant programs or things like that? And just that's something that I was curious about, to see if there's any recommendation on how we make it easier for public interaction, or if it's already sufficient enough. Just a thought that I had in looking through this.
Is that information you're looking for from the department, or something you included as a aside in the letter back?
I'm just asking the committee to think about it for the next time that we discuss this, to see if we want to, include any requests of the department, or maybe just, for future reference. I don't know, just think about it, and that it's on our.
Representative Palmore.
Thank you. One of the things that I took from, since we're talking about DECD right now, is, first of all, I liked that we were able to really just see what every department was doing. I think it was a very well-written report, and even the presentation they gave us was very clear. One of the things that, when we're talking about what Representative Hassenfuss was mentioning too, is I think that the information is accessible. It's just everywhere. And, when I'm looking at stuff or anything that's Maine department related, and this is not something necessarily the DECD though they do have many different departments and could potentially have one page that kind of links to all of those resources. I think we need to do a better job of as a state, period. But I think that they've done a very great job. I didn't have any concerns, but when it does come to information, I mean, each individual thing has its own page, and that can be difficult to find those resources, especially when you're looking for grants, unless you know where to look. Thank you.
Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Chairman Roberts. I would concur with Senator Curry's comment about the way that the DECD was able to pivot. When one thinks of governmental organizations, you don't think of an organization being nimble. And throughout the pandemic process over the last couple of years, that's one of the things that I've been struck with DECD is how nimble they have been in pivoting from this, whether it be paycheck protection or whether it be a program to help the performing arts or a program to help this group of business. And that group was just, I mean, they were just on top of it all the time. I would also concur with Representative Collimore's comment about kind of a one-stop shop place to go. I remember when Ms. Foy was there, I had reached out to them and said, could you please just send us a list of all the programs so that we can kind of be able to, you know, send that list to people so they can go and do that. She did that. I still have the list in case I need it, but I think that's something that we in government need to make sure that there are a lot of good things that are done. Unfortunately, people don't know how to access them. So I think that's an important piece. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Senator Sayre, I see your hand up. I just want to kind of redirect us and see where we're at right now. Are we moving towards, it's sounding like the committee feels that the department has kind of met the evaluation criteria, you know, to our satisfaction, and we're looking at giving them, you know, credit in certain areas and then maybe a suggestion in others. If it's not in the direction we're heading and crafting a letter, we feel like we need more information, please let me know. Senator Sayre.
Yes, I just spoke to Representative Sue Bernard, and she said she to just ask if we could wait a little bit of time so she can also be involved in the vote. She can't be today, but she said she'd like to take a little time and a little bit before making any answer. So if we could do that, because we have until, correct?
You broke up there for a second. What was that?
We have until February 15th, you said, on this?
The report is due March 15th. Yes.
So if we can have a little time to kind of review the report and discuss it and then come back and do a vote on it.
Is that, and Senator Sayre, was that in regards to both agency reports?
Yeah, the G report, yeah.
Both of them? Okay, so maybe, do we want to do this? Because Ms. Olson said she had not heard any requests from any of us for additional information from either of the two reports. So that kind of led us as chairs to think we were good to go. So if we're looking for more time, what I ask is that the committee review these reports. And if you have additional information that you would like to, please let Ms. Olson know as soon as possible so she has time to get that information and bring it back to us, and then we can act on it. I believe Senator Curry and myself kind of were thinking that nobody had additional questions because nothing had come up. Okay. So I don't know if the motion, do we want to table these until people have had?
No,
Yeah. Senator Curry?
Yeah, I think that's fine. We're all, I don't even know if it's a motion situation at this point because we're going from this conversation and as my understanding it, Rachel, Ms. Olson was going to prepare a letter, based on comments that we're giving here, and that letter would come back to us. But we certainly can do more questions. We just have a timeline that we have to meet and have to give them enough time for it. So I don't think we're in a motion situation at this point. And I just want to check in with Ms. Olson. Is that your sense of you're not looking for a motion from us? We ultimately, at some point, you've got to be able to draft a letter, which is the committee's response to the statutory requirement for GEA. And we will see that letter and you're trying to get the pieces of that, correct? If we're going down this route, not doing legislation on top of it, we're going down a route that we think is mostly, yes, they're within the statutory requirements and this is what we want to say, then you just need those pieces of information in order to draft a letter.
Yes, that is, yes. I don't think there's anything to prohibit continued discussion today should the committee desire it and not actually. So I will be diligently taking notes on the discussion, what individuals put forward. But no, the committee doesn't have to take action on it today. I think generally there would be some type of consensus from the committee, and then similar to the budget process, putting in, but so-and-so may feel differently, or these individuals would like to put forth this idea, but it wasn't the minority or majority view of the committee. So, the letter can be shaped in that regard. If the committee is interested, we do have, I could look back at the committee did do GEA reviews previously. I'm not going to say on the 129th, but previously. I know FAME has had one at least, and I think another agency. I could try to pull up samples of those letters if the committee is sort of wondering what that might look like.
I would appreciate that if that's something that you could send to the committee members.
Sure. I think I can find. I think we have copies that I can pull up. Yeah.
Representative Andrews.
Yeah, I was going to make a motion that we table this until February 8th to give us another week for further review and hopefully to have the House our lead here as well to participate. I'm happy to lay that out there for a second, but if people think that we are good to go with what we just discussed, I'm cool with that as well. Just let me know where everybody's at.
I think if there's no other discussion right now, we can wait for Ms. Olson to find a draft letter so the committee has a better idea of what exactly it is that we're crafting to send to them and what that looks like. And then we can, as you said, Representative Andrews, maybe look at it. Is that next week? Yeah, that's next week. To look at my calendar. If that sounds good to everyone. Representative Ducharme.
I would just concur if we have a date certain that we're going to, this is the day we're going to talk about this, then I think it's a lot easier for people to kind of wrap their minds around it. If we know about it far enough in advance, it's good. That's all.
I don't believe we have a heavy schedule yet on the 8th, so that's certainly a possibility. The chairs will discuss. Senator Curry.
Yes, Senator Ducharme, I just want to respond to that in terms of, I just want to make sure everyone's clear on kind of the task before us in terms of that we are just charting a letter that can have, ideally as much as it being consensus would be ideal so that it's the statement from the committee, but there can be aspects that are minority positions that we also want to make sure are included in a letter. Yeah, that's our task before us. So once we have the date, I think everyone will know that's what we're working towards at some point. The timing on it, I think for questions is probably the bigger issue right now. So if there's a piece of information that you want to get from the department, we need to give them time so it doesn't push back our deadline or push us back. So I guess I'll say try to do that the next couple of days if there's more information that you'd like to have from from the department or from MDF that Ms. Olson can facilitate getting that.
I don't see any other hands up, so I guess we'll wrap this portion of the day up and go back to, where did my squares keep moving? Ms. Olson, do you have any, and just as a side note for the committee, we're not planning to meet on the 10th. Ms. Olson, do you have anything else for us today?
Yes, I have one thing, and that's just a language review. Bear with me, I'll pull it up. And in this language review, I have one point of consideration to bring forward. This is the language review for 17, I'm going to put it on the screen, 1785, an act to address staffing shortages in critical public safety jobs through economic incentives. The committee voted to turn this into a resolve to examine recruitment and retention programs and incentives for public safety workers. So here it is, as suggested with some of the additions. So the Department of Labor, in consultation with the Maine Fire Protection Service Commission, the Maine Sheriff's Association, the Maine Criminal Justice Academy, the Maine Ambulance Association, the Maine Municipal Association, and the Finance Authority of Maine, shall develop a definition of public safety worker, which must include, but it is not limited to, law enforcement personnel, firefighters, and emergency medical service personnel, and examine programs and incentives for recruitment and retention of such public safety workers. In examining such programs and incentives, the Department of Labor shall identify programs and incentives used for the purpose of recruitment and retention of public safety workers in this state and in other states, and evaluate the effect such programs and incentives have on recruitment and retention, or the estimated impact such programs and incentives may have if implemented. Such programs and incentives may include, but are not limited to, student loan repayment, mortgage loan or interest rate relief, hiring incentives, benefits, or payment for job-related training requirements. And then section 2 is the report. That the Department of Labor shall submit a report, including suggested legislation, to the Joint Standing Committee of the Legislature, ours, IDEA, and Labor and Housing by January 15th of 2023. The Joint Standing Committees may each report out a bill based on the report to the first regular session of the 131st. So my only note here is that this would could result in competing bills. So that's something for the committee to consider. And I will stop sharing if everyone is.
Senator Seaway.
Just have a question on this. Is this mostly designed for recruiting first responders? Because I'm wondering if this is including communication.
I guess we are tasking the Department of Labor to develop a definition of public safety worker. We have specified that it must include certain individuals, including law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS, but that the definition could include others. And I think, which are you asking about dispatchers? Is that what you mean by communications?
Yeah, I just want, how this all is what we're requesting.
Yeah, well, so you specified if law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS personnel, but you are also tasking the Department of Labor in consultation with those groups to develop a definition of public safety worker. So it's really, at that point, it would be at the discretion of the individuals conducting the work to come forward with a proposed definition of public safety worker.
All right.
Representative Hasselfuss.
I I just wanted to say that I'm fine with that allowing both committees to have a bill. That's okay with me.
I would concur there. Senator Curry.
I think I don't see any problem. So thank you, Chair Roberts. I don't see any problem with that because it might very well be, we did make this much more expansive by not limiting it to mortgage or student loan debt relief. So there very well might be things that are more in the realm of the IDEA committee and other things that are more in the realm of labor and housing. And so there might be two different bills that come forward, each in their own realm. And I think that's entirely okay. I would trust the two committees to figure out where would be the right place to put the different aspects of it if they find amazing recruitment and retention levers in this.
Is that everything you need there, Ms. Olson?
It is. And just, I want everyone to remember that, we do these language reviews so that you can see the substantive language that you decided on. Remember, of course, that these are going to go into processing and they are going to get teched and hopefully perfected. And then I always share finals and fiscal notes as well. And so the committee can continuously look at the issue and make any decisions as information becomes available. But just to remember that we do language reviews so that you voted on substance and now you can see what that substance looks like in its initial language form. So just reminding of the process, that's all. I'm good otherwise.
That's all you have for us?
That's it. Today.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Representative Hassan, is that all in favor? Everybody just raised their hands, so I don't know who first and second. Okay.